Welcome to the LivXplore Podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit like and subscribe. Welcome, everyone. I'm Sean Payne, owner and founder of LivXplore Real Estate and Lifestyle. I have my co-host with me today, Isaiah Chass. Isaiah, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
And today we're going to bump around a little bit and talk about what's going on in the California fire insurance market. A lot of just issues going on with people losing their current policy, having difficulty maybe when they're buying a home, putting a policy in place, or putting a policy in place and then finding out during escrow that their insurance company isn't going to provide fire insurance, so they have to find a wraparound policy for that. Mm-hmm. So about 6 weeks ago, I listened to a seminar by the California Department of Insurance and talked a little about the California's insurance market, which is the largest in the United States and the fourth largest in the world. And so it's a huge market, and we've just been hit with inflation, cost of materials in recent years, and the last 5 or 6 years we've had some catastrophic fires. So you put all those together, and it makes it very difficult for insurance companies to continue to operate that way. So in the current real estate landscape, we're facing these significant challenges, and they seem to be ever evolving that way. So we're going to try to give you information, but this really is just a guide only. We're real estate professionals, and we aren't insurance professionals, but we're trying to get the information out there because we do see this on a day-to-day basis, and we're getting calls quite often about people that are in high fire risk areas that way.
And that being said, if you want to be in touch with an insurance agent or someone that can speak from the insurance industry, we can certainly point you in the right direction with some trusted contacts that we have.
Yes, and I would like to provide a link to this document as well. We put together just like a primer of what we're talking about today with various links to some resources that way. We're not coming up with this information on our own. And so we'll find a way to include that in the presentation that way. So, but please do your own diligence, contact your insurance agent, and put your heads together to try to come up with some solutions. So that being said, again, I am not an insurance professional, but this is what my understanding is that's kind of been going on is that, again, we'll provide this information, but right about now there's over 100 current companies in California that provide insurance. Now, the ones that you're familiar with, the big national brands, the Farmers, State Farm, things like that, they're really well known, and so often those are the first ones contacted for insurance policies. But again, I don't have the exact number, but I think it's like 103, 105 or something like that. I'm looking at the list right now. It's in this document I'm talking about, where it shows that all of the approved insurance companies that can provide fire insurance in California that way. And on this seminar that I was listening to the state commissioner, he really recommended going through this list and looking and contacting some of these companies because they have policies in place. And this is the part where we could be getting things wrong, so do your own due diligence. But what my understanding is that these companies are allowed to put 10,000 new policies in place a month. Now, you've talked to some insurance agents who say they're even doing less than that, but it sounds like they're capped at 10% by the state of California.
Yeah, so the agent that I use on with a lot of my clients, he maybe a week or 2 weeks ago, I was on a call with him, and he told me that Farmers is only issuing 7,000 new policies a month. And okay. He said last month, this was in September, that they fulfilled that policy basis by the 8th of the month.
By the 8th of the month, right.
Now, I still don't know whether it gets binded at the 8th of the month or if it has to close at the 8th of the month. That's still, I don't exactly know how that works. And we've talked about if certain clients still can get something
right,
saved away. I don't really know how that works, but regardless, 7,000 policies a month is not that much.
No, not for the entire state of California that way. That's a really small amount. So like on that note, what we've been told and is that it may be better to, if you can, close escrow at the first, at the beginning of the month, putting that policy in place beforehand. But I don't know if that's true or not, but it seems like we haven't had issues with escrow's closing at the beginning of the month that way. So
Right.
again, if you're facing insurance issues, here's a list it's recommend contacting these different companies and seeing if they have policies in place, because they're going to have, they don't have the name recognition, so they're not getting contacted as much. So they very well may have policies that are in place that way. And I still think it's very good to shop around. You have the Fair Housing Plan insurance policy. Interesting enough, that was put in place years ago during the Watts riots in Southern California, when after the Watts riots, they couldn't get insurance. Insurance companies just left the area. And so the Fair Plan was put in at that point. It was never really meant for this.
It was a Band-Aid.
Yeah, it's a total Band-Aid. And so they've continued it for emergency cases, but it was not meant for this. So that being said, I have heard from people saying that they found insurance, but it was just below the fair rate. There wasn't that much of a difference. So shop around a little bit and see what happens that way. So but in this, we will be able to give you this document. It's also available on the California Department of Insurance's website as well, where they have this list of insurance companies. So that might be a good starting place for some people. But what the California Department of Insurance is putting together is they've put together what's called a Safer from Wildfires program. That's not like just a title. That's the actual name of the program. Like when I was reading it, for some reason that kept escaping me when I said Safer from Wildfires. Yeah. But that's the name of the actual program. And so again, I may be getting this totally wrong, but from the seminar that I was listening to, it looks like the state of California is going to work with putting together some requirements for like fire hardening requirements. They may be very similar to the current requirements, but they may be tweaked a little bit. But they're supposed to be put together these requirements, and then you come in and you do that mitigation on your home. You remove the trees that are trees, brush, whatever it may be that doesn't fit these requirements. At that point, you get a certificate, and you can take that certificate to your insurance provider, and that lowers your rate again. Again, someone may call me crazy for saying this. This was just on the seminar. It seems like it's just all being worked out right now. Mm-hmm. But that's the direction it sounds like we're going. So
it sounds somewhat similar, almost like an AB 38 inspection.
Yes.
For those that don't know what that is, it's homes in a high or very high fire severity area per the National Hazard Disclosure would have to get an inspection done by either the state level being CAL FIRE or local jurisdictions being city fire departments. And a lot of those fire hardening requirements are included in that. So it kind of sounds like an adaptation of that to some extent.
Yes, yeah, I think that's for newer homes, but already existing structures, putting something like that in place, and probably rather than having the fire department come out because they'll get inundated with work, maybe they'll be able to have certify certain companies or whatnot to do these type of inspections that way. But jumping into it, from this Safer from Wildfires program, they'll learn the 10 steps for being safer from wildfires. Here's the 10 things. So it's a Class A fire rated roof, a 5-foot ember resistant zone, including fencing. So what that means is removing greenery and replacing wood chips with stone or decomposed granite 5 feet from around your home, which prevents fire from getting to the foot of the door. Replacing wood fencing connecting to your home with metal is critical because it can act like a candle wick, leading fire straight to your home. That's the California Department of Insurance wording, not mine that way. So continuing on, ember and fire resistant vents. If you go to your local hardware store and ask to see what a fire resistant vents, you'll be like, oh, that's not on my home. So it's a little bit different. You'll be able to visually see it that way. Non-combustible 6 inches at the bottom of exterior walls. So having a minimum of 6 vertical inches measured from the ground up and from any attached horizontal surface like a deck, which can stop embers from accumulating and igniting your walls. Non-combustible materials include bricks, stone, fire cement, siding, or concrete. Enclosed eaves. So installing soffits under your eaves can prevent heat and embers from getting trapped and igniting. Upgraded windows. So multi-plane windows are more resistant to heat and embers from getting trapped. I'm sorry, I'm reading that totally wrong. Are more resistant to breaking during a wildfire. Obviously, one that is kind of intuitive. Cleared vegetation, weeds and debris from underneath decks. So like getting like, anything that every now and then you'll see like bushes popping up through the decks that way. You want to get rid of that. And really, any vegetation that's combustible around your home. Removable, this is an important one. I don't think a lot of people realize this. Removal of combustible sheds and other outbuildings at least a distance of 30 feet. So, a lot of people I know have put like sheds in for a little bit extra storage that isn't 30 feet. They may not have 30 feet to do that. So that's something you really want to look into. And these include, sheds, gazebos, ADUs, open covered structures with a solid roof, dog houses, playhouses, things of that nature. I think like they're supposed to be made of a composite or metal that way. So you can have like, if you're less than 30 feet, don't hold me to this, but I believe like a metal shed is more appropriate than something that can be combustible that way. Defensible space compliance, following state and local laws requiring defensible space, including trimming trees and removal of brush and debris from the yard. And in this document, there is CAL FIRE's defensible space page, and your local city or county may have additional details. Here in Sonoma County, they go off CAL FIRE's defensible space page. I know that Marin County has their own. So depending on where you're at, your municipality may have more stringent standards that way. And being safe together, Safer from Wildfires recognizes 2 community-wide programs, FireWise USA and Fire Risk Reduction communities as small as 8 dwelling units or as big as 2,500 units can create an action plan and start building safer together. FireWise USA is a nationally recognized program with proven results, sponsored by National Fire Prevention Association. Why I think it's so important to bring this up is I think in order to get that insurance policy we talked about, or that certificate, it's not, what I should have said is not only the homeowner that has to do their remediation, but the community they're in has to take some actionable plan as well to qualify. So this process is going to be two-step. The individual property owner has to be proactive, as well as the community. They need to address this with one of these plans. So,
well, especially when the insurance providers are looking at a certain zip code, they can't really distinguish if they have too high of they're over leveraged in a certain zip code just because your home is might have a higher level of fire hardening. If the whole area as a whole is not up to that level, then they don't want to be involved in it.
Right. And just before, one last thing before we actually go into like the defensible space requirements, Gavin Newsom, was it last week, a couple weeks ago, he issued a new executive order, which was a package of executive actions aimed at immediate and lasting changes to protect insurance consumers from climate change. In this document, you'll have access to that executive order. I went through it. I don't exactly, I don't know how much teeth it has in it that way, but I do know that as a result of that, through the California Department of Insurance and Ricardo Lara, he has issued executive action to transition homeowners and businesses from the FAIR plan back into the normal insurance market, with commitments from fire insurance companies to cover all parts of California by writing no less than 85% of their statewide market share in high wildfire risk communities. So, for example, if a company writes 20 out of their 100 homes statewide, it must write 17 out of 100 homes in a distressed area. So, that sounds good. I hope that works. Again, I think everyone needs to be proactive in this. My concern would be that like those type of orders may eventually cause some insurance companies to leave the state of California, and then the pool lessens that way. I'm not an expert on this, but just I know that I know the state of California is in somewhat of a tough situation that if they go kind of too hard at the insurance companies, they'll potentially leave. So there's kind of have to be a middle ground that way.
Yeah, so, and let the free market decide that on its own, really,
to
some extent, right?
Right. Yeah. So why don't we jump into just kind of as of right now, it seems like the defensible space guidelines are your best starting point. So why don't we go off some of those and what's going on that way?
Yeah. So in this document, also there's a page from California government website, particularly from CAL FIRE. So CAL FIRE puts together a defensible space guideline, and they classify it as three zones. So the first zone they call zone 0. It's the closest to your home. So that's a lot of the things that you just mentioned, using hardscape, gravel, pavers, concrete, nothing combustible, including bark or mulch. Think about how many properties have bark on their properties.
So again, like this is something that like at the community level, it's not being addressed, right? So we have like this water reduction program in many communities. Well, they'll come in and give you mulch and things like that, pull out your lawn. Realize that may be adding mulch or bark or things like that around your home within that 5 feet of dispensable space may need to be changed in order for you to qualify for whatever the certificate program is, or just, for insurance companies to see that it should probably be gravel.
Right. So. Yeah, and people overlook that a lot.
Yes.
And on top of that, weeds, debris, things in your gutters, anything on the porch, stairways, anything that's dead or dying that's easily combustible needs to obviously be taken out. All branches within 10 feet of a chimney or stovepipe outlet should be removed. And then anything such as firewood or lumber, that should be moved farther away from the home into zone 2, which we'll get into that in a minute. Also, obviously, combustible fences, gates, which you talked about, anything that can attach to the home or is attached to the home is a way that fire can get led directly up to the house. So you get to zone 1, which is anything within 30 feet of the house. That's zone 0 is really thing directly abutted to the house. Zone 1 is anything within 30 feet. That's still anything, any trees should be kept trimmed. They advise, or they say any tree should be 10 feet from another tree. And the reason for that is obviously the fire will travel between the trees. And if there's not space between those, then it just keeps jumping through.
Sure.
So there should be separation between trees, shrubs, anything that can catch fire. Then you get to zone 2, which is anything within 100 feet. And that's annual grass. Cutting that down to 4 inches, creating horizontal space between shrubs and trees, creating vertical space between grass, shrubs, and trees, removing fallen leaves, keeping 10 feet around exposed wood piles, and then keeping 10 feet of clearance to bare soil and no flammable vegetation for 10 feet around the exterior of any outbuildings. You look at the vertical spacing that I just mentioned, and they recommend that any shrub or plant, there should be 3 times the amount of clearance of its height from any tree. So if you have a 3-foot tall shrub, there should be 9 feet clearance between the top of that shrub and the base of the trees.
So like the lowest branches or whatnot?
Right.
Okay.
And same goes for horizontal spacing. There should be 3 times the distance in its height separating shrubs. So if it's a 3-foot tall shrub, it should be separated 9 feet from another shrub. Now, if it's a moderately sloped property, say 20 to 40% slope, they say that should be 4 times the amount.
Okay.
So if there's a 3-foot tall shrub, there should be 12 feet in between that. And then there's also separation between trees. So 10 feet for trees on flat to mildly sloped properties. And then when you get to moderate or steep slope properties, which they're saying over 40%, they're recommending 30 feet between any tree, and then 6 times the height difference between any shrubs.
All right.
So that's pretty substantial.
Yep. I mean, a lot of, I have to do it at my house, but a lot of people need to take out a lot of trimming, maybe some tree removal to make sure you're compliant. It's unfortunate, but, it's important. And it's important that everyone does participate in this to mitigate the risk of fire in your neighborhood that way.
Well, just think about how many people have a wood fence up to their house, and
yeah,
you think, that doesn't matter. It's fine, right? But
Yeah, no,
does
like I
make a
said,
difference.
I put a dog run up in the back of my backyard, and it abuts up to my house. So no, I'm going to swap out the gates with metal gates to help with that issue that way. A lot of things that you don't realize. And so, like I mentioned earlier, there's a couple programs that kind of mirror these guidelines. One is, so what Isaiah was just talking about was off fire.ca.gov, defensible space. You'll be able to find those guidelines there. But there's also two programs that are recognized by the state of California. One is Preparing Homes for Wildfire, which is at let's see, what website is this? nfpa.org. Preparing Homes for Wildfires. There's guidelines there. Basically the same guidelines as what Isaiah went over. They have more schematics, and they call the zones. They have different names for the zones, but basically the same zones that way. So that's another resource that you can look there. They have both Spanish and English versions of the fact sheet. And then also you have the Board of Forestry and Fire Protection as a resource as well that has a list of recommendations. So you can check them out too. So.
I forgot to mention on that CAL FIRE document, there's a tab that you can request a defensible space inspection. So if you're looking to have that done or need it done prior to the sale of a property, then you can request that through there.
Right. So again, we will make this document available for people. If you have any questions, please ask questions in the comment section. If you're looking on this on YouTube, if not, please hit us up and email us. And we'll get those questions answered because, there's a lot of uncertainty, and I think things will change. Hopefully, this insurance certificate program will become more clear. It'll come out, and there's ways that people can do the mitigation, and after they do that, get a reduced insurance policy that way. So hopefully that's coming. But ask us questions, and do your own research. There's a very good, very well may be that we got some of this wrong. We tried to get it right, or by the time you're listening to it, that it's changed.
Totally.
So just make sure that you're doing your own due diligence that way. Isaiah, anything else that you want to go over with?
No, the insurance market's very fluid right now, and I think there's going to be a lot of changes as the time comes. So definitely reach out if you have questions.
Yep, sounds good. All right. Well, I'm Sean Payne, owner and founder of LivXplore Real Estate and Lifestyle. My co-host, Isaiah Chass. Thank you for joining us. Please hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content so you can see future episodes. See you later, guys.
See you guys next time.
Welcome to the LivXplore Podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit like and subscribe.